There was one thing that I do with all my films that I try to like figure out: is this an objective film or is this a subjective film? Are we going to be telling this film through her point of view entirely, or are we going to do a mixture? Or are we going to be more objective and just sort of like observe the character? And I feel like Sean's films tend to be more observational, and a lot of the films that I do tend to be quite subjective. So there was a balance, I think, with this one, because the movie's called Anora. I feel like on one hand you do want to be in her head, but at the same time the movie has such restraint in that regard, and I almost feel like you're not quite with her in her head in her that space until the very end of the film. You know, like she has this guard, and I think that was a really interesting thing that I think you know, probably Sean led that sort of approach, you know. And I try to adapt to Sean's storytelling style, which is a little bit more objective, and you know, it's funny, and we like to play in master shots. We like unconventional coverage. The film, in my opinion, even if it wasn't subjective, it needed to feel like the style and the feeling and the personality of the film, I think, needed to sort of reflect her as a character. So the film has this attitude, you know, like the camera work has attitude, has like punchiness, has like grit to it, has scrappiness to it, you know, like we dollied like right on the floor. We didn't hardly lay any dolly track, you know, like kind of embrace like some imperfections, embrace like underexposure and pushing the film a couple stops, and flashing and pulling it a couple stops. We were just all over the map with like some of the visual approach, you know, which just felt like it all in a way echoed her and her sort of scrappy hustler mentality that she has, you know. It almost starts in this like neo-realist sort of way, and then goes into like almost like a gangster sort of film. It almost feels like Godfather-esque or something, where we're like really formal, really locked down, classic like dolly moves, and there's an elegance to it. And I don't know, like the home invasion scene, you know, it just has this weight to it. And then it goes into this like crazy, wild, like New York streets, kinetic, wild section of the film, and then it all comes to a halt and slows down at the end. And for me, I love films that change. I don't want it to just be like one note. I want it to evolve, and I like films that have have an arc to them visually. I don't like films that just feel like one thing. Like I want them to feel like almost like they could be two films or three films like that. It should change, you know, like Waves is a good example of that. For me, it's just more exciting. It's also more fun to shoot a film like that. I feel like when you're doing one thing the whole time, you can get bored. And I feel like, you know, you're in a space, for instance, you know, you're block shooting like 3 or 4 scenes in a space, but there's a progression to what you're doing. It keeps it fresh. It keeps it kind of fun to shoot, you know.